Now, it's the common condition that can go unnoticed by doctors, but with millions of us said to suffer from a vitamin B12 deficiency, what signs and symptoms should you be looking out for?
Well, Dr Chris joins us now alongside Carrie-Ann Kay, who found herself waiting more than a year before receiving a correct diagnosis. So welcome to both of you. Chris, let's just start by explaining what is B12, where do we get it from?
Yeah, well, B12 it's a vitamin that's essential to bodily processes. DNA depends on vitamin B12, your red blood cells and your nervous system. And the body can't make B12, so we have to get it from our food, from our diet. And the sources of B12 are your liver, kidneys, beef, fish like salmon and clams, and then you've got milk, dairy products and eggs, and also cereals fortified with B12.
Right.
So when you look at that list of foods, the people who could be B12 deficient are vegans and vegetarians. And the situation is that 75% of vegans are said to be deficient of B12 and 25% of vegetarians. So they need to be taking a B12 supplement because their diet's not providing it.
But for some, a B12 supplement, as a pill that you buy from a health food shop or whatever, would not be enough, and you actually need to go for injections.
Yeah, now we're into a different area there. Basically, you know, B12, you swallow it in your food. When it gets to the stomach puts out a protein called intrinsic factor, which helps the B12 to be absorbed lower down, right, in the intestines. Now, some people have an autoimmune disease where they don't produce intrinsic factor, so the B12 is not going to be absorbed, and that is pernicious anemia. So if they take B12, it's not going to have any effect at all, and they receive B12 injections on a regular basis.
And this is where, Carrie, your story comes in, because your symptoms started when you were actually in labour and you started to get these pins and needles, and after the labour finished, it didn't go away, and things worsened quite quickly after that, didn't they?
I mean, during labour, it was one of the nicest effects because I had pins and needles all at the back of my head and my spine and all the way down my face. It felt nice.
Right.
And I was saying, oh, I've got these pins and needles, and I didn't realise at the time that it was 18 hours of nitrous oxide, of gas and air.
Right.
But I just got worse and worse. Postnatally, it was just...
So at its
terrible.
absolute worst, what was happening to you?
I was bedridden, so I couldn't get out of bed. I'd stand up and it felt like I was drunk on a boat, but without the lovely effects of alcohol.
Yeah,
and I was kind of walking and I couldn't stand up. I was bumping into things, headaches, complete paralysis in hands, feet.
Weight loss, blurred speech and vision,
Yeah,
the pins and needles, bleeding.
Tinnitus, yeah, menstrual bleeding for 6 months every day, headaches for every day.
And
tinnitus.
The GP that you went to, and this is quite common actually with vitamin B12 deficiencies, that they will misdiagnose depression.
Yeah, well, my dad had died 3 weeks suddenly before I gave birth, and I went back to work pretty quick. So I kind of made excuses. I'm a busy working mum. I've had sudden grief. I've just had a baby, and you make all these excuses. And when the dust had settled after a year, I had a drop attack with my son in my arms and I fell to the floor. Luckily, my husband was there to catch him, and I woke up on the ground and I was like, what?
Well, you were worried about stroke, weren't you?
Yeah, and my hands were just clamping, and I need to be dexterous for my job. I'm self-employed, so it's at that moment that I thought, OK. And we went to A&E, had a CAT scan, that came back fine, had bloods, they came back fine, and that was the issue that we were saying. That
well, you're a highly successful fashion designer, designed for all sorts of people that you know we will all have heard of. But it was only when you went to a holistic therapist, Michelle Jackson, that she unlocked this mystery.
She was the missing link for me. Yeah. So I was going to her for reflexology because I was feeling so bad, and other treatments, just holistically, because the doctors were just pushing antidepressants on me.
How quickly, when she discovered that there was a B12 deficiency, how quickly was it before you recovered?
I have an injection within 12 hours, everything stops.
That's unbelievable.
Everything. It's just... And I'd taken... The doctors were trying to push antidepressants on me, and I said, I'm sad because of my dad, but I'm not depressed. It's not my will not to work, it's my body will not respond.
Let you. Dr Chris, if you go to your doctor and you ask for a vitamin B test to B12 deficiency test.
Yeah.
They can do that, but there's, depending on where you are in the country, there's a bit of a postcode lottery on whether or not they decide you are at a low level or not.
It's a controversial issue. A patient can go in there with symptoms of anemia, shortness of breath, palpitations, fatigue, brain fog, etc. GP does the blood test, comes back, and the B12 levels are in the normal range. Now, that normal range could be found in one lab, but not in another. And there's no gold standard for this range of B12. So you can say, sorry, your B12's fine, off you go, and the patient's actually got a B12 deficiency. What the patient should ask for is active B12. When they go for a blood test, can do active B12, and that tells you the level of the active B12 that's circulating in your body.
Right.
But it's a big problem.
That was the missing link as well. And when Michelle came to me and said, that sounds like B12 deficiency, have you had your blood test done? I said, yeah, the doctor said it was fine.
Well, anybody
She
watching
said,
this that
go and get the
recognises any of those
printout.
symptoms, go and see their GP and go armed with
Thank
the
you.
info. Thank you.